their service.
For sure. So what, so definitely let's talk about what you have found. And, I definitely want to chime in on what we should know, from the go when it comes to being a caregiver. The number one thing that came to my head when we started talking about this conversation was that definitely takes a village to be a caregiver, right? The family caregiver. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, definitely. It took us a village first with our children.
Uh-huh.
My husband and I were such a mess because I didn't know what to do with somebody with schizophrenia and PTSD. And our children took care of us emotionally. And they got in our faces and told us to stop yelling at each other. And they shed a lot of tears. And so our village started with our kids. Our village also was both of our families.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of caregivers really struggle with feeling or seeing any family support. And I'm so grateful that both of our families have been behind us the whole way, not judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't blamed. It's just been incredible to have such great family support. And in one way, my family can't really do anything for me to take care of my husband because he doesn't want to tolerate anybody.
Yeah.
And so if I need to, I do leave my husband, but he has to be by himself, which is kind of crazy. But and then people have come out of the woodwork, friends of kids, teammates on their, sports teams, people from church, people from music groups that my kids have belonged to. People just have, taken kids to events when I was at work or when my husband was in the hospital or whatever, took care of things. And so I think I've been so fortunate. And you're absolutely right. When caregivers don't feel that support or they don't know how to ask or they can't get the support of other people in their communities and families, it's super hard. So
asking, I found, was something. Even though I feel my sister-in-law is amazing. She's an angel God sent. But when it came to asking was my biggest. I definitely didn't want to ask, or I didn't know how to ask. I felt like I was asking, but I wasn't really asking,
Yeah.
And it was, I found more and more that I wasn't really alone when I asked. But I couldn't be attached to if they responded in a way that wasn't the way I wanted them to respond. I had to be ready for the no, if that was the case. Right.
Yeah. One of the first things I address as a caregiver, as a self-care coach is getting people to figure out how to ask and what to ask. How specific should we be? Time frames, all of those things, because if we just ask for help, people are going to panic and say no.
Yeah.
So that's one of the first things we talk about to help people get the right help when they need it.
For sure. Because if they don't, caregiving, when I first started on this path in 2017 of researching, right before I had started the nonprofit, because my mom was diagnosed at least 10 years ago with short-term early onset dementia. So she was physically very healthy. However, she just had no short-term memory. And so it's only gotten worse over the years. But what I realized when I was doing my research, that there was something called that a lot of the caregivers who were now their loved ones had passed, but they talked about caring can kill the caregiver. And I had never heard that term before. And they explained that when they don't get respite or they don't do self-care, that there is a large majority of caregivers that pass before their loved ones. How did you how do you deal with or express to your clients about that part of
That's such a beautiful question. And part of my past has also been that I've been a physical therapist assistant for 32 years. So I have seen hundreds of caregivers crash and burn before their loved one.
Yeah.
And we've had to pull up beds for caregivers that didn't take care of themselves, and they had to be, and then we've had to take care of the caregiver first, and then their loved one had to come into the facility too, because they didn't have anybody else that they knew that could take care of them. And so it's a real thing that if you don't take care of yourself and get the respite, like Kimberly was saying, that it's possible to pass away before your loved one. And then the terrifying thing is, who's going to care for your loved one? If you think nobody can care for your loved one now, what's going to happen if you don't make it? And then you're really not there at all. So this is a very sobering thought, but people just don't get it. They're like, no, I can put myself on the back burner for now because my loved one is so much more important. And a big part of that is that self-care, the real kind of self-care, the emotional and the mental self-care, the self-talk and managing our emotions and all of those things, is more challenging than telling our loved one what to do or sacrificing our own needs.
And why do you think that is?
Well, it's because the kind of self-care that really is effective is not indulgence. It's like self-parenting. It's like you need to eat right. You need to get your sleep. You need to examine your beliefs that maybe served you when you were younger and now they don't serve you. And you need to check those beliefs, figure out what they are, and ditch them if they are not applicable to your life as a caregiver. So, for example, one belief that I really struggled to ditch was work first, play later. That served me really well when I was a kid and I had to do my chores before I could go out to play. And when I was in college and I needed to, do my schoolwork before I could go skiing, or even when I was a young mom and I needed to, make sure we had breakfast and lunch and everything and all the things before we go to the park, right? But when you're a caregiver, if you think you're going to get all the work done before you ever play, guess what? You will never play and you will crash and burn.
Absolutely.
So I had to ditch that idea. And so we have all these beliefs that served us, and we have to decide, like, you don't have to ditch all your beliefs, and you can still keep work first and play later. And if you love to work, maybe that is your play. I don't know. But the trick is to look at them and to figure out where they are, where they came from, and if they're still serving you. So that's something that is huge.
Yeah. Retraining. I can understand that part more, because I definitely when I first was thrusted into being a caregiver, I wanted to control everything. And when I could not control it, I would crash and I would just like break down. It was definitely a moment of breakdown, or a long moment of breakdown, right? Over time, they have gotten, it's less and less. And I specifically realized and had the aha moment when my mom came and moved in with us, that the first 2 months, it's like, I have to be okay with it not being perfect with her. As long as she's safe and she's, happy and she, and she's functioning, that's what matters, right? Not that I wasn't, I don't know, that she wasn't changed immediately, or she didn't have breakfast at this certain time, even though when it comes to someone with dementia, you should have a regular routine, consistency. But I just didn't beat myself up all the time when I couldn't control everything. And I learned to fill my cup first, whether it be a shower, whether it be, meditation, 15 minutes, exercise, mindless scrolling on TikTok, whatever it is, to help me be happy and get in a mindset so I can go help her. That was huge for me when I finally did that.
That's absolutely essential. My motto is thriving caregivers care better.
Yeah.
And we really do. Most of the people that join my group, because I ask everybody that joins my group if they would, it's not a requirement, but I ask them, what's your greatest challenge and what's your biggest need? And people say, I want to learn more about my loved one's problem, and I want to have more patience, and I want to do all the things right. And a lot of them say, I want support too. but most of the time, caregivers really are very selfless people. That's why they've stepped up to the plate to be a caregiver in the first place.
Mhm.
And they're more concerned about their loved one than they are about themselves. But
Yeah.
that's backwards. Because if you care about being patient more than you care about having a healthy meal, if you're hungry and somebody's taking a long time to get through their shower, or if they're doing
Yeah.
whatever monkey business that people with dementia or people do,
Yeah.
you're going to lose patience
Yeah.
more quickly if you're hungry, or if you're tired, or if you haven't meditated or done your journaling, or whatever fills your bucket.
Yeah.
You have to take care of yourself first in order to be a good and loving caregiver.
Yeah. Yeah. So that you're not hangry, or you're
Yeah.
not frustrated, or you're not at a heightened level. Because for sure, when my when I'm in, my mom can sense when I'm, you know, urgent, right? When I'm rushing, or when she feels like I'm rushing her, right?
Yeah.
So I learned that quickly, that, you know, she's my mother, right? She always knew when we were sick, or could hear it in our tone when something was wrong. And even more now, she hears it in my voice when I'm in a rush. So I do my best to not be that way, right? Or I know that I have to tell her, hey, because we have to go do, mom. She's also she likes to be on time. You know, that was in her genes, in her DNA, and it doesn't. So if I go to that point in her brain of, we got to be on time, mom, we committed to something. She's all about the commitment. Okay, you're right. Okay. So then she starts to move along. She doesn't lollygag in the bathroom, like I call it, when she's sitting there thinking, should I brush my teeth? Should I get up? What do I want to do? You know, I think I just want to sit here and think on the potty. Like, she'll sit there sometimes, just be like, do, do, do. I'm like, mom, what are you doing? We got to go. What's up? Right. So it is something that, being a caregiver ebbs and flows, but we absolutely should be filling up and filling up our cup so that we can care for the other person properly, emotionally and physically, but also at the same time, being self-aware. Like, you know, I found it interesting that you said a lot of your the folks in your Facebook group want to know more about the disease, whatever it is that their loved one has. I started that way, and then I didn't want to know anymore, because when it came to dementia, like, I felt like everybody's different, right? Like,
Yes, absolutely.
so many of the things that people, I mean, there were a few, but not a lot, right? But there's a few that, like, oh, this happens and this happens, and oh, she's going to get angry. And well, she gets angry, but only when you push on her, right? She's always been that way. That's it. You know, that's just her. But yeah, I just didn't want to know anymore, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and the stages are different, and everybody's different in their stages.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had patients over the years that have just turned into little terrors, and people over the years that have just kind of gone inside their shell and clammed up and just, you know, so there's the whole spectrum of how people respond to, you know, the losses and the deficiencies in their brain.
Yeah, for sure. And just like no disease is the same for a person, no caregiving situation, right, is the same.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Everybody starts somewhere.
Yeah. So yeah, in coaching, that's why I decided to be a self-care coach instead of a caregiver coach that helps you figure out what to do for your loved one.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what you should do for your loved one. That's, you do better than I do.
Yeah.
I know how to take care of you. So yeah. I love to take care of the caregivers.
Yeah. It's definitely something that more caregivers need to pay attention to. And, you know, whether it's you or someone else, find that support person to get, to get yourself in the right space, to be able to do this. But before you even get to that point, you should be having a conversation with your loved ones about if something happens to you, right? If you have a stroke, if you get diagnosed with cancer, if you get diagnosed with, dementia, whatever it is, like, have that initial conversation in advance, right? Instead
Oh
of
yeah.
being thrown. I mean, because what would you, how would you approach it differently now, like your kids, like now, like for you, obviously you've had lots of conversations with your children, you know, because that's my big thing. That's why Do As We Do was started, was people need to be having these conversations with their children. You know, if they're 18 or older and you haven't had a conversation about what you want done, if you live and you don't die, what is your plan? Like how did the conversation go with your kids?
It's still ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
My parents had a really good conversation with all of their kids, and my parents are both still alive in their 80s, and just
Awesome.
my mom runs circles around all the kids and grandkids, but my dad has Parkinson's, and so
Oh,
they've gone to all the extremes of every facet of preparation you could possibly imagine. And my dad's a a control freak too, so he's got that all figured out. But for me and our kids, it's been a conversation that we've had ever since they were young. Like I said,
uh-huh.
our kids kind of had to be our caregivers. And my husband and I put a lot of things in order a long time ago when they were little. What would happen, if he and I were both in a car accident and died, and
Mhm.
also what would happen if he passed away, what would happen if I passed away and he didn't. So our kids have learned what our wishes are, and they have the papers and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But I've also told them that I want them to just use their best judgment too. If
Mhm.
their best judgment is against our wishes,
Hmm.
use it. And I'm
Wow.
good with that. Like, I'm going to be dead. I don't care what happens.
Well, no, but not if you die, but if you live, remember, like this is,
If I live, yeah. So
yeah,
I've
the
told
whole,
them water. I just want water. I
just
just make sure I'm hydrated because I hate having a dry mouth, but all the rest of it is their best judgment. So, but anyway, yeah, we've had the conversations. We don't have all the paperwork all perfect
yeah.
because it's changed recently.
Well, yeah.
Some
But
things have changed. So we
but
need to update it. But it was perfect at one point, and the
well,
kids pretty much know what to do.
and that's, that's my big thing. It's not even about the paperwork, right? Like a
Right,
paperwork aside, because everybody gets caught up in that part.
right.
But if people, because I know they're not having this conversation, um, we have a question. Let me hold on a second. But like I'll get to the question here 1 second, because I had a shiny penny moment. But if people don't even have a conversation with their children, and their kids are 18, one child, whatever it is, like if you don't tell them something, they're going to be thrown and thrusted into this experience, whether it's 2 years right before you get old and have to and are going to pass, because everybody, there was a stat out that everybody will need at least 2 years of care in their final years, or if something tragic happens and they live, then what? Like that's definitely a longer period of time. So
Yeah,
it's paperwork aside, just a conversation is, and I'm happy you've had that conversation with your folks.
had so many.
um
Yeah.
so, Laura Lustus, can you give one example of a gentle way to start a conversation with your children when they don't want to even talk to you about or you're imagining happening? Yeah, go ahead. I'll let you take that one.
You let me take that one?
Yeah, Jill. Great question. Thank you, Laura.
So, yeah, just address their fear. So if they're fearful of talking about it, maybe
Mm-hmm.
it just means that they're scared for themselves about how badly they might react to the conversation, or maybe they're just trying to be kind and saying, "Oh, we can't talk about this because you're not going to die
Yeah.
anytime soon." And maybe they just really are trying um, to not accept, for your sake, that
Mm-hmm.
anything's going to happen. I don't know how to really say that, but I had some of that when my parents first started talking to us about what do you guys want? Who wants the organ and who wants this and who wants that? I'm like, I don't want any of your stuff.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I just want you to live. And this was
Yeah.
years ago, and so yeah, they might just be pansying around the fact that it's going to happen, and so what you need to do is get your own self squared away with your thoughts and not worry about what their feelings are going to be. Their feelings are theirs to manage, not
Mm-hmm.
yours.
Correct.
And you just bring it up. If they want to feel uncomfortable, that's okay. They get to feel uncomfortable for a while.
But it's
the
still,
more you bring it up and the more you talk about it, like I said, I've had a ton of conversations with my kids, and they tell me all the time, Mom, I got this. And they've told me that since they were little, since my oldest was 6 years old. And I started when my husband would act weird or be delusional or get angry or something. And I would try to be the mama bear and protect my kids. And, oh, don't worry about it. Your dad just thinks people are really scary or whatever. David would say to me, Mom, it's okay. I got this. I'm good. I understand, Dad. And my youngest one is all about, Mom, you got to validate Dad. When he says something, don't argue with him. And so
you have wise children. Your children are super wise. But
my kids are amazing. But it's because they grew up with it. So we have had all these conversations a lot. And they know exactly what to do. And they're probably going to be better at taking care of their dad than I ever have been. So,
well, I think for your children are rare. However, for Laura and her kids, I know that feeling that we definitely were the same way. Oh, it's never going to happen. You're going to, like my mom was the last person we ever thought something like this would happen to. Right. And it was really, really hard, but I wish I would have gone back and really stayed focused and pressed on the what if with my mom, right?
Yeah.
And not, because it was uncomfortable. It's the same way with my dad. Like I'm opposite with my dad. Like, oh, you're gonna live forever, whatever. But when I had to start managing my mom's care, I had to turn back around and tell my dad, hey, Pops, I love you. If you don't want to come and live with me and Mom, they're divorced, but like separate areas, but let's all get a big house, then I can't go back and forth anymore with it. Like, we need to get your will, we need to get everything straightened out in order of care. When you do get to that point, and it can't be me, I'll need to know about it, but and I can help, but I can't take on both of you, right? Like I had to, because he didn't want to talk about it, and I didn't want to talk about it with him in the early beginnings because he was going to live forever. But yeah, definitely press on it. And like graded, Laura says, thank you. She, sticking with it. Like she
had a girl.
Keep trying, talk to them, because it is super important. And I know people don't like to hear this word, but I'm going to say it. It is a super burden to your children and a super I don't even know what to say. Disservice, I guess. When you throw them into something like this, I would never, like, I love my mom. She is the bomb. But if she knew half the things I had to experience and go through because I was thrusted into this, she would be heartbroken. So I encourage people all the time. Like I get all like, but only because I don't want anybody else. I don't want this for other people's children or other people, that out there that may think, oh, that's never going to happen to us or me, but it is. It's going to happen to everybody.
Of course, it's going to happen. Yeah, it's going to happen to everybody.
Yeah. It is. So keeping those things in mind when it comes to caregiving, for sure, and it ebbs and it flows. Nobody's journey is the same,
right? And
the more you can stay connected with others, right, and having someone like you supporting them, or whether it's your other family members, or it's I don't know, like find it and hold on to it because it's important. So, and we missing anything else, Jill?
I just didn't want to be talking while you were being so poignant and so impactful, because people need to realize how important it is. And I think when we, can show how much emotionally it has impacted us, then that will inspire people to really take care of themselves. So there's Triage. I have Triage Tuesdays. And when you're thrust into being a caregiver, which is the topic of this kind of interview, when you suddenly find yourself a caregiver, and I just want you to know that all of you caregivers are not trapped. You don't have to be a caregiver. You have chosen to be a caregiver because you are amazing. And you might say, oh, well, I'm their spouse, I have to do it. No, you don't. As a therapist, I have seen so many people desert children, parents,
yeah,
fiancés. If you can't handle it, you go away.
Spouses.
And there's lots of kids of one person, and lots of those kids say, no, I can't do it. And sometimes all the kids will say, I can, but then after, bouncing mom or dad back and forth between several of you, you realize there is one person that really does the best job, or really enjoys it more, or they have the space and the ability. So you are caregiving because you are incredible and you're amazing, not because you're trapped. So once you own that, it gives you a lot more power to be able to make the tough decisions and to put yourself first. Look, I'm the best one for the job. I need to take care of myself. My needs, my boundaries, my issues are first. And once I'm tough and I got it going on and I'm loving myself, then I'm going to look after mom first. I'm going to use Kimberly's example. I'm going to look after mom first. And pops can take it or leave it. But mom is my number 2 project.
Yeah,
and
after myself.
If Pops wants to be included in my love, he can be, part of this too, but he's third or, 5th. Maybe I have a sibling that needs to be. So you got to do triage, and you always have to come first. And then you will do so much better for number 2.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Liz Levens, for joining us. Actually, Laura says, great advice. Focusing on self-care has to come first. Yes, it does. It's not natural when emotions are so heightened with stress and anxiety, over caring for the ones you love, for sure. It's very true. And we, oh, sorry, my button, my technology. Well, we definitely, I want to wrap up. I want to be mindful of your time. Again, our goal is to be here Friday, and having these tough conversations around topics that will help the family caregiver, because there are lots of caregivers in the world that are paid by someone else, right? And it is that they're amazing people too, but this is definitely focused, and Do As We Do, the foundation nonprofit is focused on helping unpaid family caregivers, because we absolutely, until the laws change, until our healthcare laws change, we're going to be doing it. Like, family will be doing it. It is by far, like, I don't want to say there's no hope. We are the hope, and education and awareness and telling these stories, that's the hope. That's what gives me hope, because that's the only way we're going to change, is if we don't have these discussions. And even when I get emotional, I try to shut it so I don't make others feel uncomfortable. I mean, not with you, obviously, but if I don't know the person, I don't want to run them off, but I want them to understand. I don't want to shut them down. I don't want them to shut down, I should say. But I want them to understand how important it is, and that it's going to happen. I don't care what people think in their minds, right? My dad's like, oh, just put me out in the pasture, put me over the railroad tracks. Like, yeah, no, it's not, that's not happening. But us caring for you, Dad, will. So
I had a patient one time. This is just a cute little short story. Sorry. But I had a patient one time that I saw for wound care. Anyway, I won't go into the details, but every time I came into his house, I'd say, hi, how you doing? So-and-so, I'll call him Bob. And he'd say, well, I guess I'm ready for that old wrecking yard in the sky. You can just put me out back and drain my parts and all of this stuff. And I was like, okay. He was so cute.
Yeah. But it doesn't happen like that, people.
No, it is. We can't put Grandpa out backyard in the wrecking yard in the sky yet.
Correct. So Oh my goodness. But yes, thank you all, everyone. Thank you, Jill. Again, if you want to connect with Jill, I'm going to put this up. Please connect with Jill at jillarmijo.com, right? I didn't mess up on any of the, I always put too many I's in your name, Jill.
There's a lot. Yeah.
There's only two, but
I's and L's and two J's,
yeah.
2 I's, 2 L's, and then an arm in there somewhere.
Yeah. On Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, as well as YouTube. So you can connect with her at any of those places. And if you have experienced something you want to share, please put it in the comments. Let us, we want to hear about it. If you'd like to be a guest on Do As We Do, or and talk with Jill and I, or just talk with Jill, please message us, or if you know somebody, leave it in the comments, leave their name, tag them. Absolutely. And yes, Laura, we do default to humor because we need it. And thank you, ladies. Yes.
Thank you for your Do As We Do, Kimberly. That was just incredible at Christmas time, how you helped some of my people. So I appreciate it.
Well, that was our generous donors that are that get it, and hopefully we'll be able to help more. That's the goal, is to be able to provide that little bit of something for the caregiver themselves, because we definitely forget about ourselves, the caregiver, that is, right? So until next Friday, everyone, remember, sharing is caring, and it's not about if you die, but it is about if you live. Do you have a plan? And do your loved ones know what that plan is? Very important. So until next week, bye, y'all.
Bye, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Bye.